2-acre site in the Horsham area since 1988. It's home to a variety of wildlife with over 400 species of plants and over 100 species of bird. And our reporter Min Kerr went along to speak to Jeremy Knight, the museum and heritage curator, to hear about the history of where it all began.
We're actually standing in a height which was opened in 2017, which is virtually 400 years after this pond that we're looking out on was created. Today we're part of the Year of Culture, which is the district-wide celebration of heritage and culture. So it's quite apt that we are here because this pond was also the place where Shelley, the Warnham-born poet, wrote the first known letter, where he asked for some gingerbread from the fair in Horsham so he could then actually have as a picnic with some friends. One of the people who used to invite along to the pond was his sister, who used to talk about a giant tortoise living in it. Currently there's no tortoises, or so I've been told by the countryside people who look after this wonderful reserve, but it's one of the many aspects of the heritage and culture of the district, and particularly this hidden gem that is worth exploring today as we look out onto the pond.
How long is this pond originally? When did it first come about from? What was that exact date?
Well, we know that the pond existed by about 1609 because we have a document in the museum's collections. In 1609, the watercourse was leased, and then they blocked it up to provide water for the mill. And we know that in the Civil War, that the mill had ceased to, or the iron furnace working stopped. It had been destroyed by the Civil War, and then it continued as a milling site for corn grain and that sort of thing. And we have a fantastic picture in the museum's collection done in 1768 by an artist of the Mill Bridge, which is one of the earliest watercolours known in Sussex, and that shows the Mill Bridge out the site. So we know it's been in existence since at least 1600. And I'll hand you over to my colleague Jake, who is an ecology manager who knows so much more about the sites than I ever could.
I'm the countryside and ecology manager for Horsham District Council, and my responsibility is to look after the 7 countryside sites, and Warnham Local Nature Reserve is one of their main sites, and also one of the Horsham hidden gems. So I run the reserve from a day-to-day point of view, along with the Friends of Warnham, and it's essentially run by volunteers, and then there's a small warden team that do the day-to-day management of the reserve.
Tell me a little bit about what actually goes on in the nature reserve, because I'm new to all of this,
okay.
So I've got lots to learn.
Yeah, okay, so in the winter we do lots of habitat management work, so lots of strimming of the reed beds and coppicing of the trees, essentially to keep the views that you're looking out on over the mill pond at the moment. And we're one of the best sites in Sussex to see kingfisher. You'll see lots of perches around the edge of the lake, and we have 2 pairs of kingfishers that normally both breed, and we have about 10 kingfishers in there by the end of the summer. So lots and lots of people come from all the surrounding counties to see the kingfishers here because they're really nice to photograph. So that's one of the main draws.
And what about some of the other wildlife? Because I can see up here you've got a board with lots of photographs.
Yep.
Could you tell me a little bit about that in
Yep.
detail?
So we, on an annual basis, we have about 100 species of bird that use the site. So in the winter we tend to have more wildfowl. So at the moment we're in a transition period between the spring and summer. So in the winter we have great crested grebes, tufted duck, shoveler, widgeon, that sort of thing that use the lake, and they're coming down for most of the fish and freshwater invertebrates. And then in the spring, we get all the migrants come back. So we have swallows and reed warblers. Occasionally we get sedge warbler and rarer things as well that use the site to actually breed on. So we're in transition at the moment, but we're just starting to see some of the migrants coming back from Africa, and our wildfowl are leaving to go to Scandinavia to breed. So that's basically how we manage the site on a day-to-day basis. But we couldn't do any of that without the Friends of Warnham Nature Reserve. And I'm going to pass over now to the chairman of the Friends, and that's John Wilkes.
My role is chairman of the Friends. The Friends have existed for over 13 years now, and were formed to support and promote the reserve. And we've done this, I think, very well over those 13 years. We promote him. We do that through our own website. We have road shows that go out. We support these guys like Jake. By running events, we run meetings, and our biggest commitment is 7 days a week, all through the year, is running the visitor centre on behalf of Horsham District Council, which is a mammoth commitment. What else do we do? We raise a lot of funds. We've paid for hides, we've paid for benches, fences, we make significant contributions to the big projects that go on, and one that's going on at the moment is we've funded for a webcam that is over one of our heron nests.
Tell me a little bit about the webcam. What does that mean?
The webcam, it's with the firm we've used, has done a lot of work throughout locations in the UK, for RSPB, etc., Ospreys, Peregrines. We now have a unique offering of having one on herons that nest up here, and that can be viewed in the visitor centre, and before long it should be viewable on the web as well. So I say a unique offering that is, which is all about boosting, because what we're about is improving visitor experience.
If you could tell me a little bit about the Harvest Maya project, what does that involve?
Okay, this was one of our earliest projects to reintroduce harvest mice, red-listed species that are becoming rarer and rarer because of habitat loss. What we've been doing is we've successfully been breeding them. Some of them can be seen in the visitor centre, and they're being released on other sites around Horsham. We're lucky in having our own colony up here, so we don't need to worry too much. But apart from the good news about reintroducing them, they are a tremendous attraction to all the youngsters that come into the visitor centre, and you can see them and they rush over to see if they can see the mice, which is fantastic. So it's a double game really, but it is something the Friends have been supporting for probably the last 8 years or more.
Visit Warnham Local Nature Reserve in Horsham. While she was there, she spoke to the Parks and Countryside Development Officer, Anna Chapman, about their Discovery Hub project.
The whole point of this Discovery Hub is to make a much more accessible building that sits on the edge of the mill pond, and it has a great view over the mill pond. And it's going to allow people who aren't so familiar with nature and wildlife spotting to learn much more about how to spot things around the reserve.
And how will they do that?
We're going to have some fantastic interpretation and information around the hub, so they'll be able to come into this hub. Sometimes you feel a little bit intimidated coming into one of these bird hides because you've got all these photographers who know what they're looking for, but this will be a much more welcoming space where they'll be able to have big images of what they're looking for. They'll have binoculars and telescopes to look through. And we'll be telling them about the importance of the natural habitat and also signposting them to what they can see throughout the reserve and where they can see it.
How will this new hub be able to help other people to understand more about wildlife?
So we'll have pictures around the Discovery Hub, which will be telling people what they can see around the reserve, and there'll also be binoculars and telescopes within the Discovery Hub so that they can see more of the images through the windows. Leading out onto the reserve, there'll be a great trail which will signpost people to areas where they can spot those different things around the reserve. So it might be different types of habitat, it might be different birds. It will also signpost them to historic areas, such as a view of the old mill and where the ironstone might have laid as well. Also, so there are three elements. We've talked about the Discovery Hub, we've talked about the trail around the reserve, and there's a garden that leads into the visitor centre in the first place. And we're going to be developing that garden, making it a much nicer space to sit in, and also having some words from Shelley within the garden as well.
And have you got any interesting stories you'd like to share with me about the nature reserve?
Yes, back in the 1950s, the mill pond used to freeze over, and local people used to come and skate on the mill pond. You wouldn't do that nowadays, but yeah, maybe that's a sign of climate change.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely to speak with you. Jake, I've got a question for you. Tell me a little bit about habitats and the importance of them. Why are they important?
Okay, so we're really lucky on being on the edge of Horsham. So the whole of Horsham is a big urban area, obviously. It's quite a big town. And the reserve plays a key role at buffering the edge of the town into the wider countryside. So the habitats on the reserve, we've got a real mosaic of habitats. We've got reed bed, we've got obviously the big mill pond. But in total, we've got 90 acres of different habitats, some broadleaf woodland, some coniferous woodland, and all of those offer opportunities for different wildlife to find a home, really. And we also help with the sort of green corridor around the edge of Horsham that is so important to the wildlife. We talk a lot about habitat destruction and things like that, and that is one of the key roles that the reserve plays on the edge of the urban development. Part of the hub project is trying to reconnect people with nature and get that greener living sort of aspect across to the community. And we run a series of volunteer groups where we have people with mental illness, and we're actually being referred people from doctor surgeries to come out onto our green spaces, particularly Warnham Nature Reserve, to get them out into the environment and just relax. You know, we don't do that anymore. People don't go for walks and things like that anymore. I'm really trying to engage the community, but not only the older adults, but the youngsters as well, to actually relax and enjoy the environment that you're in.
And I guess some of the visitors that do come and are, you know, enjoying the fact that they can see this beautiful pond here, being able to see the nature reserve and also to meet other people, what's their feedback? What have they said?
We actually did a visitor survey last year, and we were surprised how many people came just for a complete relax and detox from mobile phones and social media and all of that sort of thing. Our feedback that we get from most of our visitors is that you can just walk and listen to the birds and not worry about any of your stresses of your life. So that is really quite an important part of the community that this reserve plays.
Ming Kerr there, who's been on a visit to Warnham Local Nature Reserve in Horsham, talking to Anna Chapman, who is the Parks and Countryside Development Officer, all about their Discovery Hub project. You can find out more. The website address, www.warnhamnaturereservefriends.org.uk. And men out and about again, same time next Sunday afternoon.